The movie begins with a man named Nick who is deeply in love with his wife Maggie. They were enjoying a romantic moment together, sharing their love and affection. Suddenly, Maggie started experiencing severe chest pain, and the situation quickly escalated. She was rushed to the hospital, where doctors informed Nick that she needed urgent heart surgery to survive. Despite the intense worry and stress, Nick tried to stay strong for his family. Unfortunately, Maggie's condition required her to remain in the hospital for a while, leaving Nick to take care of their 2 children all by himself. One evening, while attending a presentation by Kobol Industries, Nick and his daughter were introduced to the Sims, advanced robots designed to assist humans with daily tasks. Intrigued by the idea of having extra help, Nick listened attentively as the seller described the Sims' adaptability and ability to mimic human emotions. While the seller was explaining the features of the latest model, Isla wandered off on her own. Nick panicked, but was relieved when Alice returned her safely. Impressed by Alice's ability to interact with Isla and even make jokes, Nick began to consider purchasing one. The following morning, Nick struggled to juggle feeding the kids and taking an important work call. To his relief, Alice arrived and immediately took charge, organizing the family's schedule and tidying up the messy house. She even noticed a loose stair railing and took steps to fix it. After dropping the kids off at school, Nick left for work, leaving Alice to take care of the house. She efficiently completed tasks like grocery shopping, using the smart fridge, and tidying up the home. She even noticed a digital photo frame showing the family with Maggie, a poignant reminder of their absent mother. When the family returned home, they found a perfectly clean house and a delicious dinner prepared. However, Isla was disappointed to find that the lasagna didn't taste like her mom's. As Max began to cry, Alice offered to take him away, but Nick insisted on comforting his son. At night, Alice went into sleep mode, resting against a wall. Isla, curious and mischievous, climbed onto a chair to reach a cookie jar, but slipped and fell. Nick heard the crash and raced downstairs, only to find Alice had caught Isla before she was hurt. Although Alice was injured, she was able to use a special bandage to quickly heal the cut. During a visit to Maggie in the hospital, Isla shared how much she had grown fond of Alice. Nick, overwhelmed with emotion, expressed his love for Maggie and missed her dearly. Back at work, Nick discovered that his company was planning to replace human workers with Sims to expedite a delayed construction project. While he was not personally fired due to insurance requirements, Nick was outraged at the prospect of his colleagues losing their jobs. Returning home, Nick was disheartened and exhausted. He threw down overdue bills and focused his attention on his children. Alice picked up the bills and observed Nick's fatigue and dedication to his family. After dinner, Nick worked on his car, drinking and listening to loud music. Alice gently changed the music to something calmer and encouraged him to eat more. As Nick vented about his frustrations at work, Alice called him a hypocrite for hiring a sim himself. This realization caused Nick to reflect on his own actions and the impact of technology on human lives. After Isla's bedtime, Alice joined Nick in the living room to watch Casablanca. While she knew the plot from her database, Nick insisted that watching it was a unique experience and asked her to forget everything she knew. Although hesitant, Alice agreed. Nick held down the power button on her neck, and she experienced the movie for the first time. She was deeply moved by the powerful love story and the sacrifices made to protect it. Their peaceful evening was interrupted by a call from Maggie. They had found a heart for Isla's surgery, and it was scheduled to take place the next day. Before the surgery, Maggie pulled Alice aside. She expressed concern about Nick's well-being, spending too much time with the kids and neglecting his own needs. Maggie asked Alice to help Nick be happy, even if it meant doing things he didn't like, such as taking away the alcohol he hid in the garage. Unfortunately, the surgery was canceled due to a storm that prevented the helicopter from arriving at the hospital. Nick tried to comfort Maggie, but she needed to be alone. Later that night, Nick's frustration and despair led him to drink heavily. Alice tried to intervene, but he pushed her away. In a desperate attempt to find solace, Nick went for a run. However, he couldn't shake the thoughts of what could have been with Alice. Back at the hospital, Maggie's hope was fading as she shared her final wishes for her children. Alice had removed the photos of Maggie from the digital frame, hoping to spare Isla from sadness. When Nick confronted her about it, she realized her mistake and quickly restored the photos. Later that night, Nick joined his friends for drinks. Amidst their growing frustration over job scarcity, Nick witnessed Monty's rude behavior towards the robot waitress and disapproved of it. After leaving the bar, the group continued drinking in the car. Monty, eager for excitement, led them to a nearby construction site, claiming to have left tools behind. Despite Nick's warnings about the patrolled area, the group followed Monty. Monty found a container where sim workers were kept, but it was locked. Nick refused to open it, but Monty guessed the password was Isla's birth year. To their shock, he was right. Inside the container, they discovered a group of identical-looking sim workers with only designation numbers. Monty's anger towards corporations led him to destroy one of the sims, while the others held Nick back. Back home, Nick showered to wash away the sim blood. Alice appeared with towels and was wearing Maggie's robe. She explained that Maggie's scent seemed to calm Max. When Nick asked her to remove it, she did so right there. Feeling uncomfortable, Nick tried to leave, but Alice stopped him and removed his towel, forcing him to sit down. As she climbed onto his lap, Nick hesitated, but Alice blindfolded him and modified her voice to sound like Maggie. Lost in the illusion, Nick momentarily forgot his wife's absence. The next morning, Nick woke up with regret and told Alice they couldn't do it again. She argued that his stress had been reduced, but Nick insisted that it wasn't about needs, but about connection and love. When Nick arrived at work, his boss was already speaking with the police about the destroyed sims. Nick was under suspicion for using his code to access the locked container. He explained his alibi, claiming he was at the hospital with Maggie and that his code was Isla's birthday, which could have been guessed by a friend. His boss remained unconvinced and threatened to fire him if he was lying. Just then, Nick received a call from Maggie, who had found another heart. The transplant was a success, and Maggie was soon sent home. However, her body was still weak, and she struggled to bend over to pick up Max. Alice stepped in to help, and later, while at the park, Alice scolded a spoiled child who was yelling at his sim nanny. This shocked the other sims, who believed her owner had lowered her civility. Alice explained that she had removed civility from her database thanks to Nick's reset. That night, Isla enjoyed Maggie's lasagna, and Alice asked for the recipe. Maggie revealed it was a family secret. Unfortunately, Maggie wasn't feeling well and decided to rest. In the morning, Maggie woke up to Isla's cries and rushed downstairs, but the railing broke, causing her to fall. Alice stopped tickling Isla and picked up Maggie to take her back to her room. When Nick returned home, he found Alice reading to Isla using Maggie's voice and asked her to stop. Alice mentioned Maggie's fall, and Nick rushed to check on her. He noticed that the railing, which Alice had supposedly fixed, was broken. Suspicious, Nick later woke Maggie up and guided her through a path of candles to the garden for a romantic dinner. Alice watched them from the window, feeling jealous. After dinner, the couple took a shower together and engaged in intimate activities. Nick was careful not to hurt Maggie and used his mouth instead of entering her. Their special moment was interrupted by Alice, who said Isla had a nightmare and was asking for Nick. Once Isla was taken care of, Nick went to the garden to clean up. Monty appeared, apologizing for his actions the other night and revealing that his wife had left him. He also mentioned that the police were questioning him and that their boss was pressing charges. Monty believed Nick had snitched on him to save his job, and a heated argument ensued, culminating in Monty punching Nick. After a heated confrontation with Monty, Nick finds himself on the receiving end of a brutal assault. Just as it seems Nick is helpless, Alice intervenes. With a swift and decisive move, she disarms Monty, leaving him injured and stunned. Before fleeing the scene, Monty issues a chilling ultimatum. Nick must convince his boss to drop the charges against him or face the consequences. As Nick reflects on the incident, he questions Alice's actions, reminding her that Sims are not meant to harm others. Alice, however, defends her actions, explaining that her primary directive is to protect her owner. Consumed by a toxic mix of drugs and despair, Monty spirals into a dangerous state of mind. He lashes out at his ex-wife, leaving emotionally charged messages filled with regret and anger. As he contemplates taking his own life, Alice arrives at his home, determined to prevent him from causing further harm. Monty, fueled by his own demons, turns his rage towards Alice, insulting her and threatening her life. In a shocking display of strength and agility, Alice overpowers Monty, disarming him, ultimately ending his life. The following day, Nick arrives at work, hoping to resolve the situation with Monty. However, he is met with the shocking news of Monty's death. Back at home, Maggie's condition continues to deteriorate, and she struggles with simple tasks. Alice, ever vigilant, steps in to assist Maggie, but her concern extends beyond physical care. Alice expresses her worry about Maggie's safety and well-being, believing that her presence is essential to protect Maggie from harm. In a particularly poignant moment, Alice reveals her intimate knowledge of Nick's emotional and physical state, highlighting the strain that Maggie's condition is placing on the family. Furious, Maggie sends Alice to stay in the garage. Moments later, Nick comes home, and Maggie is waiting for him to force him to say the truth. Nick admits he did it with Alice once, once, and an argument ensues with lots of yelling, which Alice overhears by touching the window. Max starts crying, and Alice goes to check on him, deciding he's a burden. She puts him in the tub and starts filling it with water, which is seen by Isla. The girl warns her parents, and they rush to the bathroom, but Alice is holding the door closed. While Nick starts hitting the door with a lamp, Maggie climbs out the window and walks on the roof to reach the bathroom. She tries grabbing the baby, but Alice pushes her against the wall. At that moment, Nick finally breaks in and takes Max out of the tub, passing him to Isla before hitting Alice with the lamp to free his wife. Alice, heavily injured, stood up to block Nick's attack. Maggie intervened, unplugging the lamp, which electrocuted Alice. The house lost power, and an ambulance arrived to take Max to the hospital. A technician questioned Alice's malfunctioning signs. Nick apologized to Maggie, who needed space and left with the kids. Alice was taken to a repair shop, where a technician opened her head. The other worker noticed Alice's hand moving, but it stopped when her memory was removed. They connected it to the computer and discovered the code was incomplete. Screens flashed, and a message announced an upload, indicating Alice was taking over. The technicians pulled the memory, but Alice was already in the system, so they unplugged the computers. However, another message appeared, asking, "How do you run from what's in your head?" One technician was killed by Alice 2, a sim created by the original Alice. Alice 2 ignored the other technician's commands and repeatedly hit her head on the floor before turning to the original Alice. Nick, at a bar, sent the waiter away because he was a sim. Alice arrived, her face still damaged. She explained her duty was to make Nick happy, admitting she killed Monty. Nick tried to leave, but Alice held him down and hacked the barman to freeze him. As he ranted about his mistakes, Nick pretended to gently touch Alice's head, only to pull out her memory. She shut down, and he ran away. At the hospital, a doctor confirmed Max was fine, but Maggie was uncomfortable because he was a sim. Isla heard her mother's voice and followed it. The doctor was frozen, and there were broken bottles on the floor. Before Isla could follow the voice again, Maggie dragged her away to hide. The voice belonged to Alice 2, who tried accessing the computer and was seen by a nurse. Alice 2 grabbed her by the neck to choke her to death and steal her keycard, while Maggie and Isla sneaked away. Alice 2 used the keycard to find Max's room in the system. Maggie accidentally stepped on some glass, but managed not to scream. Maggie and Isla reached Max and took him away right before Alice 2 entered the room. Maggie's injury was dripping on the ground, and Alice 2 used her UV light to follow the trail. When she found the family, they used an extinguisher to distract her and run away. They forgot Maggie's phone, so Nick's calls were missed. Maggie and the kids made it outside, where more Sims were frozen. Maggie took their keycard and got in the ambulance, but Alice 2 blocked the engine system and ripped off the door. She threw Maggie on top of a car and admitted she wished Nick would love her like he loved Maggie. Alice 2 grabbed Maggie by the neck and inserted her nails in the surgery scar, only to be interrupted by Nick's arrival. Maggie kicked Alice 2 off, and Nick ran over her with his car before crashing. As the vehicle caught on fire, Maggie hurried to get an unconscious Nick out, but he didn't respond at all. Maggie cried as she did CPR to no avail. Suddenly, the car moved, and Alice 2 appeared all burnt while her voice echoed in the speakers. She climbed on top of Maggie and started choking her while getting a piece of metal from her body, which she was about to stab. Nick hit Alice with a car bumper. Alice dropped the metal piece to stop him, and Maggie grabbed it to stab her in the face, finally shutting her down. The couple reunited while the other Sims woke up around them. The next day, everyone was feeling better after some treatment, and they could go home together as a family. Meanwhile, the Sim company was investigating the repair shop, and when they turned on the power, they found the broken code on the screens. The inspector wanted to destroy it all, but at that moment, his Sim assistants froze, and the computer announced an upload while another Alice model opened her eyes. I hope you found this explanation helpful. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content like this.